we're going back to like talking about being like a freelancer, and like it only is going to work if you just have like this like steadfast belief that like you are doing all the right things, and like everything you're doing and have been doing in the past is all leading to like your future and having success in this. So basically it's kind of just like, and it took me a long time to get to this point and realize that is what it is, but just like being able to have like full belief in what you're doing, like full head down, just like this is the path I'm on, and like I'm sticking with it, like regardless of how tough it is, regardless of how futile it's seeming, like whatever's, getting tossed my way. Like I'm here and I've had success in this, and I'm trying to continue moving forward. And it's just like the belief that it's going to work out, and there's always going to be on to the next one, on to the next thing.
Welcome to Outside of Magic, a podcast about the intersection of creativity and the outdoors. I'm your host, Christopher San Agustin, a creative director and the founder of Broken to Coastal, a studio rooted in storytelling, design, and community. This week, I'm joined by Bryan. We first crossed paths in the New York cycling scene, but I really got to know him when we rode the Oregon Outback together, a 364-mile gravel adventure route through the heart of Oregon. It has been amazing to watch from afar as he's found his voice as a photographer, and I was stoked to sit back down with him and catch up. We talk about growing up in the Bay Area, finding photography through skateboarding, the leap from New York back to California, and what it means to keep pushing forward as a creative. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying these conversations, the best way to support the show is to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. Okay, that's it. Let's jump in.
All right, we'll kick this off. I was going to ask you about your transition from New York to the Bay Area, but I'm kind of curious on just a little bit about your background growing up in the Bay Area.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we were just chatting about it. I grew up in Danville. Danville is like, in my opinion, like probably the most boring part of the East Bay in terms of like, now having about to move to Berkeley and like having access to lots of cool stuff. Danville was just kind of like remote little suburb, like classic, just like, went to high school with like a bunch of like, wealthy, rich kids. My high school, Monte Vista, was known for just being like the like party high school. Like kids were just getting into drugs and doing whatever. And me and all my friends were just like into skateboarding. And I didn't really ride bikes at all until like the end of my like high school experience. Just like finally was like tired of like bumming rides from people all the time. And yeah, it was like, MASH was like hot, and like got a track bike, and like it was like the most, classic scenario, like kid from the suburbs buys a track bike in SF, brings it back to the suburbs. Then like I moved to SF for school, and it was like immediately like, okay, like I'm gonna ride track bikes all the time. And that was like my identity when I moved to SF in 2000, which is rad. I mean, riding track bikes and stuff in that time period was super fun. And like now I'm like really good friends with like Mike, who like runs MASH, and like I've known him for a super long time. And yeah, it's just like I have a lot of nostalgia for track bikes. But like right before I moved back to California, I like almost sold my track bike, or I was like really thinking about it, and I just like couldn't do it. So now it's in my shipping container pod, just like
Nice.
probably never even gonna ride it out here, but I'm still gonna like have it as a wall hanger, I guess.
Did you grow up skateboarding and taking the BART train to San Francisco and different spots like that?
Totally. I mean, like such like a fundamental like part of my youth was like, yeah, BART to SF, like roll around, like go to Third and Army, like just like random any spots we could find. And then eventually, like one friend gets their driver's license, and it's like, okay, we're going on like missions every weekend to like go film or go do whatever, like live at the skate park, like go to one friend's backyard who has a mini ramp all the time. Yeah, just like classic, like obsessed with skateboarding as a kid. And just like, actually found my way into photography kind of, like similarly through that. Like I wasn't a good filmer, but like I had my dad's like digital camera, and I would like attempt to take skate photos. And that was like not ever actually working out super well, but that was like my introduction originally into like attempting to take photos. And then I took like darkroom photography in high school, which is like the most like classic introduction to photography that everybody kind of has. Like, take darkroom photo class 101 in high school, fall in love with it, like spend all your time in the darkroom as in high school, hands covered in like developer and smelling crazy all the time. That was me. Everybody has a similar story like that, I feel like. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for
and
sure.
then moved to SF for school, kind of like didn't really know exactly what I wanted to get into. And then, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how familiar you are with like California's education system in 2008, but Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor, and like the education system was like completely tanked at that time period. So like I couldn't get any classes. I was like a sophomore. I was like a part-time student. I was like debating moving to New York to go to art school. And my parents were like, yeah, you can do that, but it's going to be expensive and you're going to have to figure that out. And I was kind of just like, all right, like maybe I can make SF State work. Yeah, I like kind of just like eventually stuck it out, took some summer school classes, like finally got into the photo program at SF State. And that was kind of just like, all right, I'm all in on photo here now. And that photo program was a little weird, but eventually I like also got into the journalism program, and that was like really like fundamental in terms of like how I could like see photo as like a career. Like I could work for a newspaper, I could work for a magazine, I could get internships. And like previously, in the photo program that I was in at the school, I was just like taking art pictures and like in the darkroom all the time. And like no one I was in the program with like had any semblance of figuring out how they were going to do that as a career. The journalism program showed me like, okay, like journalism is like something I'm interested in, and also like an outlet for like, finding some kind of semblance of a career after school.
Yeah, totally. I grew up riding BMX and very similarly would jump on the trains and travel all over. But I do feel like as a skateboarder or a BMXer that you view the world very differently. We're always looking at like structures and how we can ride things. I'm curious how that affected your photography.
I mean, I still think about all that stuff all the time. Like, I think if you've like spent enough time, and I'm sure you still think the same way, like anytime you're like driving around or on a bike looking at stuff, like I'm seeing spots like all the time. And I barely skate anymore, but like, it's just like, I think it's wired in, and like, probably like how that affects how I see stuff for photography is just kind of like, maybe like sort of fundamentally how like I just look at like the way lines and like geometry and like how things are being framed. It's like I think all of that is based on just like how, your thoughts on looking for spots or looking at spots is like formed when you're like a kid getting into that stuff. Like I definitely like just, I guess it's like the way of seeing or whatever that you would call it for photography. But like, I definitely think about like everything similarly as how I was previously looking at spots. Like that is all connected to, imagining like the frames that you're lining up for a shot or something. It's like, it's all tied in together. But yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
about it that much anymore because it's not like I'm actively seeking out skate spots as much anymore. But yeah, it is funny to think about.
Yeah.
So hardwired.
Totally. Yeah, I did like a bunch of mapping out of just my world recently, and everything I've noticed that everything is rooted in BMX for me.
That's cool.
So lately I've been trying to nurture that BMX history, and I bought a 22-inch BMX recently and
Nice.
gonna force myself to ride it like twice a week, like at a skate park. And there's like an old man dirt jump session on Wednesdays now. So
Sweet.
scare myself a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice.
So how did you end up in New York?
And it's a funny and long story, but I was like pretty much at my dream internship in college in my senior year. I was interning at Thrasher, and
Whoa.
never like even thought that was going to be a reality. And I was only there for like maybe less than 6 months or something. It was like in my last semester, my last like year of school. And I was just like pinching myself every day when I would walk in the office. I think I was only going in like once a week or something, but I was just like there's Phelps walking by. Like this is like the coolest internship I could ever imagine happening. And like I was unpaid. Like maybe the guy, the creative director would like buy me lunch or something, but it was like there was definitely a world in which I could have gotten a job there if I had stuck it out, but like I wouldn't have known exactly what that would have looked like. I was definitely not going to get a job as a photographer. I don't think working there, like staff photographer, I wasn't making good skate photos at the time. I was really interested in photography still, but like skate photo was like not happening, even if I was at Thrasher. And I had one friend in New York who had kind of just been like, dude, like if you want to do photography, like you have to come here. Like you got to figure out how to make that happen. And I was, yeah, just like, similarly to anyone else, I think my age who was interested in photography at the time, like spending a lot of time on Tumblr that Tumblr was super hot back then. And like one of these photographers whose work I really loved, his name's Emiliano Granado. And I don't know if you ever ran into him in New York, but he was doing like Manual for Speed, which was like the preeminent like cycling journalism photo
Yeah.
project at the time
So
with
good.
this guy, Daniel, who's also in Portland, who I'm sure you know.
Hmm.
And I like sent Emiliano like I think just an email like out of the blue, like, hey man, like I love Manual for Speed. I love what you're doing. I love your work. Cause he's like a successful commercial photographer in his own right, outside of the Manual for Speed stuff. And I was just like, hey, like I'm gonna be in New York visiting my friend on spring break soon. Like, would you be down to like meet up for coffee? Like, I'd never ever even sent an email like that in my life, so I just didn't even know what I was doing. And he got back to me. He was like, yeah, for sure. Like, let me know when you're here. Like, come to Brooklyn. And yeah, I like crashed at my buddy Austin's place for a couple nights and like met up with Emiliano for coffee at diner in Williamsburg. And he was just kind of like, really honestly, like kind of like asked me some core questions I hadn't even really thought about myself. He was like, oh, like, so what are you trying to do with photography? And I was like about to graduate from college. I'm like, I don't even know. No one's ever asked me that. And he was just kind of like, well, like I'm a photographer. I like hire assistants when I need them for jobs and stuff. And I have a studio and I have a studio manager, but like we're pretty busy with this Manual for Speed stuff. And he was doing this other project, Yonder Journal, with Daniel at the time, which was also like I was so super into. And I mean, yeah, this is like in the polar like camp vibes era where like camping and photography and like all that was so hot on Instagram. They were in a good spot for marketing all this stuff
Yeah.
at the time. And he was basically just like, hey, like if you want to come intern for me for the summer, like you should figure out how to do that. Like get out here. And I went back to SF and it was like I guess like a couple weeks before I was about to graduate, and I was just like, I guess I got to figure out how to get to New York. And I asked my friend, like, hey, like, can I stay on your couch for 3 months? And he was like, yeah, sure. I have like 3 roommates, but you can be another roommate if you want. And yeah, a week after I graduated, I moved to New York with like, a track bike and a skateboard and a couple cameras. And that was, thought I was going to be there for a summer. And then 12 years later, I finally left. So
That's
pretty
super
crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to my friend Austin for letting me sleep on his couch for that long.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm curious, what did you learn being an intern over there, or anything unexpected?
I mean, yeah, so many things. Like I didn't know anything about photography truly when I got there. And Emiliano probably knew that, but he was great about just being like, hey, like I'm gonna like clearly have to show you how to become a photo assistant because you obviously never did any of that when you were in school in SF. And, nothing bad to say about the photo program I was at in school and the journalism program. Like I learned a ton that is still really helpful to me for like everything I'm doing now. But I never learned about like the names of like, photo grip and like how to, like light things properly. Basically, like I rolled into a Milano studio just like wide eyed and totally down to like learn anything he would teach me. And like he immediately like started bringing me on jobs where he was like, all right, like this is my equipment. I'll show you how to use it. Here's what it's called. You probably don't know any of this, but like if you can just be a walking light stand for me, like I'll bring you on jobs and, pay you $200 if I can get an assistant fee from the magazine or whatever. And you can just like help me learn this stuff, whatever. And yeah, he just kind of showed me the ropes. And ultimately, like things I took away from being like in his studio all the time was more like just like how you run a photography business, which I'd had previously. There's no teaching that in school. Maybe
Yeah.
some schools teach that, but my school didn't. And yeah, I learned how to like, manage like client relationships and like how to market yourself, like how to like manage a newsletter list and like keep in touch with clients and like put yourself out there and like get your work shown in front of people that you want to be, have work with. And yeah, learned a lot. It took me a long time to actually implement those practices in my own work, but it was like being drilled into me every day because I was helping Emiliano do this for himself in his studio basically over that period of time. So it was really honestly like the best internship I probably could have had. I was like, again, not a great photo assistant. There was like probably a lot of things I would have done differently if I was like been able to give myself advice. But yeah, I took whatever opportunities I could get through him and like probably should have assisted a few other people more. But I kind of just was like also getting really into bike racing at the time and like had this like newfound freedom as like a recent college grad where I was like, well, like I'm making enough money to like cover my like hilariously cheap rent in Bed-Stuy, just doing like some photo assisting and like helping out Emiliano in the studio. And like, I have all this other free time. Like, I'm just going to ride bikes all the time and like get really into road racing in Prospect Park and like just figure out what like the racing scene is like here in New York City. And I definitely can confidently say that I spent way too much time messing around racing bikes for the few years I originally just landed in New York, and kind of did not focus too much on getting, my career and lifestyle oriented in any sort of productive manner. But bike racing was pretty fun.
That's cool. I had a kind of similar experience. I moved to New York with a 1 month booking at a studio. So
Okay. What
when
year
I
was
was
that?
getting,
Because I remember when you were there, but I don't know if we crossed paths until the Oregon Outback.
I want to say it was like 2010
Okay.
ish. But leading up to my graduation from college, I flew out to New York and I had set up meetings with every studio that I possibly could. I probably
Like
sent out like 100 emails.
design stuff, not agencies, or both?
Yeah, mainly motion design studios.
Okay.
And I got maybe 10 people wrote me back, said, yeah, sure, when you're here, come by. And so I flew out there for a few days or a week and met a bunch of different studios. I had a pretty decent reel at the time, and I landed, yeah, a 1 month booking. They were like, okay, when you come out in July or whatever it was, like, we book you for a month. And I was like, that was all I needed. And so my wife and I moved to New York. We stayed in a Airbnb for a few months before we settled down in an apartment. But yeah, it was a crazy risk. But that 1 month turned into maybe 7 months at this one studio. And
Nice.
then from there, and again, I thought I knew everything. Very first day, I got my ass kicked in that
Yeah.
studio. For sure. I learned so much. But after that, like 6 or 7 month stint, I had the confidence to kind of work at other studios and things like that. So it was great.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just like, you have to like be able to, at certain points, just like take the leap. And like, it might be a huge uncomfortable jump, but like if you can see like the path outside of like, you know eventually if I do this thing, it'll lead to the next thing and the next thing after. And like, yeah, like it's uncomfortable, but you have to like be able to be like aware and capable of accepting the uncomfortable stuff to eventually get you to where you need to go. And yeah, I'm sure we've both done a ton of that.
Yeah, so many highs and lows for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, still to this day, highs and lows. So
Yeah, same.
I
Freelance life for me, highs and lows,
Yeah.
literally every day.
yeah, I still haven't quite figured it out.
Yeah.
At what point did you learn or did you get your first like real paid gig that you realized, okay, I can actually start doing this on my own?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I guess I was like probably getting like some like small magazine stuff. And I really did not hit like any stride in like newspaper and magazine work, even though like fundamentally like that's still like a huge part of my own practice. Like I love like having like a foot in like the door of like journalism stuff. And like there's nothing cooler than like opening up a magazine at the newsstand. You're like, there's like the story I worked on, like here's a bunch of photos, whatever, like, or the newspaper, like that's whatever one it is. It's always been really cool. And so I was probably getting like some magazine assignments at the time. Those were like $500 and a pop, and I was stoked if they worked out. And never really hired assistants. Like I was usually able to like shoot natural light or whatever. That was kind of my style at the time. Somehow like a friend who was like kind of get in the production world knew like I was into like, bike racing and stuff. I guess we were friends through bike racing. And he recommended me to a producer, like a junior producer for like a pretty big broadcast campaign for Oakley that like at the time I probably had like, maybe I had some cycling stuff in my portfolio. Like I had like a ton of photos from like Oregon Outback, like some bike racing photos. Like I had like stuff, I guess. Like I was taking photos of me riding bikes. That was like my stuff. I was carrying around cameras on bike rides all the time. That was my portfolio. Probably really only looked like that at the time. And yeah, I kind of got put up for this Oakley campaign and did not know how to like properly bid it, or like I think I probably underbid it. It was probably the only reason why the job was awarded to me, is because they were like, oh, this guy's like doesn't know how much he could make on this job, and we'll accept his estimate because it's like hilariously lower than all the other ones we got. And really funny story, Emiliano was also up for this job, and he probably or maybe did know that I was also up for it. I didn't know this until many years later when he told me, and I was blown away. But yeah, he probably like could have called me out and been like, hey, like I'm also up for this job. You're underbidding it. Like you either need to ask them for more money or you should like take your bid out because like you don't know what you're doing. And somehow I got the job. It was like a 4-day broadcast campaign, and I made like more than like 10 grand in those couple of days working and shooting. And I was like, it was the most money I'd ever seen from like any job. And now I'm like imagining the same job happening. I'm like, oh, this would have been like a much bigger job, a lot more money would have been on the line.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is probably like 2017 or something. So I'd already been in New York for, I don't know, several years. And like, that was like, yeah, the first like big leap, like working with an ad agency, like being on set with like, for a broadcast campaign for like that was going on like TV and in stores and stuff. So there was like that, what's a assistant director, what's like a line producer doing? Like I had never even heard any of these names, and it was totally like a fake it till you make it type thing, like me rolling on set, like no photo assistant, no strobes, and just kind of like, oh, like can you like ask the gaffer to like bring a light over here, and I'll just like piggyback off of the video team's lighting. And yeah, it was ultimately like great. And I think like some of that work eventually landed me more commercial-ish work down the line. But that was the first time like I kind of realized like, okay, like there's like a world in which like commercial photography is viable for me, and like there's a way to like leverage this into some semblance of a feature career.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you worked on a project like that where you totally fucked something up?
I mean, I didn't even blow anything on that job. I think it was more just like the finance thing. Like it couldn't have been more clear to me in the like lead up, like how little I knew about getting myself prepped for the finances part of that level of a job yet. So like luckily, and I've leaned so heavily on like the photo community that I like met and like I'm still friends with, like in all my friends outside of New York. Like I sent so many people text messages like, hey, like how do I like make an estimate? Like how do I make this look the way it needs to? Like how do these numbers look? So maybe actually thinking about it now, like I probably asked enough people that I had a decent idea of about how much money it should have been, but like it was probably the lowest bid that they got and they just accepted it. But so it probably wasn't crazy, but yeah, I got like a ton of help from people just from, just by asking. And I still do that to this day. Like if I have a question, I'm probably texting 3 people just to get like a different opinion on like, hey, like what's like usage look like for this kind of scenario for like an ad campaign, or like what's like if they need usage in like wrapped up in the same thing, like what's the rate for like a project fee for this? Like everything, like everyone's has different scenarios where they've had to like figure things like that out on their own. So I'm really lucky that I can like text a few core friends who like are always down to kind of just like ask me or to tell me how to, best advice for practice, something like that. But yeah, in terms of like really fucking something up, I'm sure there's been assignments where like I just like, maybe I wasn't like as prepared as I could have to like execute and make the best pictures that I could have. And you leave and like you go home and you look at the edit and you're like, well, like it's not fully finished and there's more I want to do. So I guess I could think of one scenario. I pitched a pretty cool story a long time ago for Bicycling Magazine. It was about Floyd Landis, the dude who was like racing with Lance, who eventually like tried to story.
Yeah, I
I
think you
don't, I don't
sued
want
him.
I don't want to butcher it. I know he sued
Yeah.
him. There was definitely a lot of backstory, and if I pulled up the story pitch that I sent to Bicycling, I'm sure I had all the details. But he was starting like a hemp company in Colorado, but then he like the thing that where I tied in, he was moving like operations to it for the company to like Amish country in Pennsylvania, because that was where he was from. He like grew up in like that community and like kind of like
That's
left
right.
it to become a bike racer, which is also funny and cool. I was like, hey, like Floyd's doing this thing in Pennsylvania. Like I'm driving distance away. Like I want to go like see what he's doing, like see what it looks like when he's like growing this like hemp CBD company down in Pennsylvania. And Amy at Bicycling, who's a good friend, was like, hey, like we really want to run this story. I think it took them a while to like get me in. Like maybe like 3 months later, she got back to me. She's like, hey, like you should go do the story. We want it in print. But I got down there, like, I think I did bring an assistant, but like we never lit anything with strobes. Like didn't know how to like direct my friend to like help me make the best pictures. And we spent like a whole day shooting. Floyd and his team were super cool, but like we kind of like just we didn't get all the photos I wanted, basically. And we only had one day down there. And so, yeah, basically I came, we got back. I like looked at the edit over the next week or something. And I was kind of just like, there's like not, the whole story is not here. And so I had to like basically ask Amy, the photo editor, like, what would it look like if I went back? And like, is there more money if I went back? Like, is there anything? I'm sure she didn't give me more money. I think I had to just like kind of suck it up and be like, if I want this story to be as complete as I was envisioning it, like I need to get myself back there and make more photos. And I don't even really remember the details of my second trip down there. I know it was a week later, but like, yeah, I just like, I knew like what the stakes were at the time then. So I was like, all right, I need to like really like embed myself. Like Amish people and don't really like to be photographed. It's like kind of like they really actually don't like it. So it was a really interesting like exercise in like, how do I make the best pictures I can of people who ultimately like are anti-technology and don't even want to be anywhere near someone with a camera, but like they're like it was also just like this unique scenario with the story. Like hemp hadn't been grown or like legally allowed to be grown in Pennsylvania for like 90 years or something. So it was like the first legal crop that year. And there's all these Amish people growing like fields of weed in front of their homes. And they're just like, they'd previously, a lot of them had been making money growing tobacco. And that has been like long since like not a profitable industry for them because, you know, there's only like one tobacco company that exists in the United States, Philip Morris or whatever. And so they were like looking for this next like cash crop that they could like utilize. And Floyd comes in with like loose connections to this community. And he's like going around to all these farmers, like, what if you grow a ton of weed and I use it for the making of this like CBD strain that, you know, I'm using for these like, he was making like lotions and stuff it was like, I don't know, kind of geared towards cyclists and recovery and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, all these farmers were just kind of like looking at me like, do you know if I'm going to be able to make any money from this? Like, when are they coming by? Like, we're harvesting like today. So I was there to see this whole harvest and like,
Wow.
they're just like shoveling like bushels of weed onto like a horse-drawn buggy and like rolling down the street. And it was just incredible to see. But realizing I kind of messed up, it was like that first day, I probably needed to go back anyway, but it was like realizing like, if I want this to be as complete as I want it to be, I need to send myself back. And like, there was no money. I'm sure I went out of pocket on expenses on that job, but like, ultimately it was like a pretty big print story. And it was like something I was super proud of. Like first thing that I ever like really like solidly pitched and was like fully confident in like, this is a story worth telling. And like, this is how I want to tell it. And like, I think my vision was fully executed once I like went back to get enough pictures. So ultimately it was great, but it took me a while to fully realize it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. That's a great lesson. And plus, man, I get thousands of lessons like that, right? Where you have
Yeah.
to just figure things out for sure. Do you still do pitches? Is that still a thing in your
Yeah,
world?
totally. When I was talking about like journalism and like kind of like working with newspapers and magazines still being like a core part of my like practice, anytime I feel really strongly about a story, like the first thing I'm doing is figuring out like how and where is like the right outlet to pitch this to. It's hard, you know, it's basically like being interviewed for a job all the time. I talk about this a lot, but like being a freelancer in photo is basically like job interviews every single day. You're pitching yourself, you're pitching stories, you're pitching yourself to agencies and large clients. Yeah, pitches are really hard. I've gotten better at it over time, but like, you know, it's depending on the level that you're trying to get it to. It's like having like a well-designed deck or treatment. And like, I'm not a great graphic designer, so those are always being tweaked to look better. Yeah. For newspapers and magazines, pitches like usually are pretty simple. It's like maybe like a few paragraphs, you know, these people who work at newspapers and magazines, like they just don't have time. So like you have to have your pitch be like really like succinct and like they need to be able to read it in 30 seconds and know whether or not it's going to work for them. And so yeah, it's usually like, here's the story, here's how I see it working for this magazine. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's when it's happening. Here's a couple photos of mine that are like similar, or like, here's a link to like a project on my website that I think could be executed in a similar way. Yeah, I pitch stuff a lot. It's like, I guess more recently I've been pitching like, hey, I want to like go to this like running event or something. Like, are you guys interested in covering this in your magazine or whatever? And yeah, like pitched every kind of person you can think of, every newspaper or magazine you can think of, brands, whatever. Brands are a little bit harder to pitch, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get the right person to give you the time of day sometimes. Yeah, I would like to say that I think I'm good at it, but it's a near constant learning experience. And maybe I'm getting a tiny bit better every time I do it. But yeah, I lose jobs, bids, pitches all the time, like every single day. You probably like maybe 5% of things, that maybe it's more than that. Hopefully it's more than that. Maybe like 10% I win versus lose. And yeah, that's just like you gotta have thick skin, I guess, in this game. Be able to handle, not like be able to handle rejection and know that there's going to be something down the line that you'll find the energy to push forward on.
Yeah, for sure. Are the pitches more like creative projects for you, or do you pitch things that you think because you know you could sell it?
It's definitely like a creative project. Like when I'm thinking of something to pitch, often if it's like to a news outlet, it's like newsworthy. So it's like something that's happening right now or soon, where I'm like, okay, like this is happening. I'm really emotionally invested in it. So I want to cover it. And how do I get someone to financially back it so I can go do it? And yeah, newsworthy pitches is one thing. Like, it's harder to like have a newsworthy pitch kind of work for like a brand unless it's like a event or something. So like, there's like a trail race or a running race or a bike race. Like that's like, okay, newsworthy, timely, and a brand that's like supporting the race or something might want coverage. So they might hire me if I pitch them. But yeah, they're definitely like, it's all based in, yeah, like a creative like exercise. And like, I see myself wanting to be here making photographs of this. I'm excited about it. Like, so it's just a constant, like, how do I figure out how to get myself there? Whether it's with some financial backing from a magazine or a brand or newspaper that kind of just wants to figure out how to get me there. But yeah, it's tough. Pitches are, yeah, like I said, something I'm doing all the time, and I don't know if I'm getting any better at it, but you just got to do it all the time to eventually one sticks.
Yeah. I think that's what matters, is that you're doing it for sure.
Confidence to even put together a pitch that I felt like was worth it. It was a long time until I even felt confident with like the level that my work was at to pitch people in general. Like I should have been taking meetings and showing even the work I had when I moved to New York a long time ago. But like it just took me a long time to even have the confidence of like, oh, like my work is at the level that I'm willing to show it to people now and like take meetings and whatever. And it's just tough, yeah, to like eventually get yourself to the point where you're like, okay, I have to take this leap now. And like my work is where I want it to be. And I'm willing to show it to people now and hope that they'll hire me. But yeah, there's no roadmap for that kind of like level that you want to get yourself at to eventually, like
Yeah.
it's all like self-confidence. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to like put yourself out there. And I was just not good at that for such a long time.
Yeah.
Still a learning experience every day.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, there's definitely no roadmap. And I know for me personally, when I like, there's those highs and lows. And when I have those low periods where things are slow, I'll get kind of frustrated, or not frustrated, but I get kind of like down on myself. I'm like,
For
man,
sure.
do I suck? Like, what's the deal? And I look at my portfolio. No, my portfolio is amazing. And then I realize, well, you got to spend that downtime creating opportunities for yourself, because it all comes down to timing. And yeah, projects need to align with the time and budget.
Yeah.
There's so many things happening outside of our control. So the more opportunities we can create for ourselves, the better. So
Timing is everything. I like a couple projects this year just, yeah, didn't work out specifically because of timing. It's like, damn, if I had pitched this like 2 months earlier, like this whole thing could have been totally different. And like, sometimes you pitch it and timing's bad just because the person you pitched it to wasn't the right person to get in touch with. And then when you finally get in touch with the right person months later, it's like, well, if I had gotten in touch with you first, like this would have been greenlit and we'd be cruising now. But instead I was dealing with the guy who would like, wasn't focused on making this one happen. So I needed 2 extra months in the beginning of this to actually have been able to do it. that
Yeah.
just happened to me. So I'm still a little sore about it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So now that you're back in the Bay Area, what's the plan?
I mean, I have like, I basically, yeah, to kind of just explain work stuff. Like right when I got here, I was bidding on a job in LA and I was like, this is sick. I'm going to like immediately start working all over California. It was like an ad campaign. I was excited about it. Client was kind of whatever, but rate was also super not, I don't know. The rate kind of sucked. The usage kind of sucked. And I was like, well, like first ad campaign job while I'm eligible for it back in California. Like I should just like make it happen on good faith, like go and do it. Just found out like last week I didn't get it. And I was like a little sore about it because I know the photographer who ended up being awarded the job. And I was just kind of surprised that it worked out that way. But yeah, then I have like some other work at the end of the month here that I'm also excited about, like a local Bay Area client that's been trying to work with me for a while. And I'm just kind of like excited to nurture that and see where that goes. But other than moving, which is about to be my nightmare in the next couple of days, moving into this apartment, I'm just like really excited to be back in the Bay for so many reasons, mostly like access to the outdoors. Like I'm, you know, spent a lot of time and a lot of distance covering on the East Coast, like seeing everything I could see via a bike or whatever through bike racing. But I've just never really like been an adult in the Bay Area. So I'm just like stoked to like, okay, like I have a car now. I can go like to the Sierra. I can go camping whenever I want. Like we can go like on cool trips and like go up the coast, go down the coast, go do stuff like I've always wanted to do. And there's just a lot of California I'm ready to tap into that I've just never really had the chance to. But I'm also like stoked to be back, just kind of like to see what is up with the Bay Area in this like current time period. You know, SF in general in the Bay kind of got like a pretty bad rep in the last like 5 or so years, probably even longer. Honestly, SF kind of sucked like right when I left it. There's like, you know, the tech boom, like lots of people moving there who like weren't really interested in like the soul of the city for what it is and still can be. But I'm fully anticipating SF and most of hopefully more of the Bay also just have like a super big like glow up hopefully really soon, like creatively, like new people, new things happening. Like I feel like it's well overdue for like a lot more cool stuff to be happening. And yeah, I'm just kind of stoked to be here and hopefully be present for that while it's going down. And I have like a pretty small like core community of like close friends that like I've kind of like they're not even really friends from college anymore, but like just like creative types who still live here and kind of just making it work. I'm just kind of stoked to be back and be present and see where, you know, new relationships lead to with work and stuff, and hopefully ride a ton of mountain bikes too. That's all.
Yeah,
Ultimately, I'm planning on spending a lot of time riding bikes, but we'll see what that looks like too.
that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't drive when I lived in the Bay Area, so every time I go back now, I get to explore new things, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
not driving at all when I was in college, and like yeah, fully just like oh, I can get anywhere on BART, I can get anywhere on a bike, and yeah, just like it's not that, you know, talk a lot about car culture, but especially in California, but it's going to be cool just to be back now and like yeah, just whatever we want to do on a weekend, like go do stuff. Me and my partner Anna haven't ever done before. I'm excited to get into that.
Sweet. Well, yeah, if you ever make it up towards Shasta or something like that, I'd be happy to drive down and do some mountain
Sick.
biking. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm still a big mountain bike noob, but yeah, just like I did some XC racing in the winter here, and I was just like, oh, like I really like this. Like, I want to do more cross country racing. Like, I'm gonna try to do. Actually, need to see if I can still register for it, but I really want to do Downeyville, the like
Yeah.
classic. Like I don't know. I've heard it's a crazy XC race that's barely an XC race. It's more of like a burly downhill trail race that people do on XC bikes. But yeah, there's just like cool bike related stuff in California I want to get into as well. Like, you know, mountain bike racing is still super new to me. So I want to like do a bunch of that and like just like haven't had a road bike out here in a long time. Like want to do a ton of road riding. Like cross, unfortunately, is kind of dead because I don't know. Cross is still sort of kicking in on the East Coast, but I'm not anticipating a ton of cross racing that I can imagine myself doing in California. But if there is opportunities to do that, I'm excited to do that too. Like I know Surf City is like a classic race in Santa Cruz I really
Yeah.
want to do.
That one's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. There's other stuff, just like classic Bay Area bike related stuff where I'm like, okay, like now I'm back and present and have the ability to do stuff like this. So excited to see what else I can get into.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and then that'll kind of just feed your soul and give you energy for everything else. So
yeah, even just like riding in the East Bay now, I'm like, I only ever lived in SF when I was like riding bikes a lot. So I'm like, all right, like East Bay is like a whole new like thing to crack in terms of like finding new routes and like getting into like, you know, the stuff I can do from my front door. I would love to do most of my riding from Berkeley like without driving, which I'm pretty sure you can do.
Oh my God. There's so much riding there.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I'm very much familiar with like most of like the mountain bike stuff in Joaquin Miller and like linking up like all the, you know, trail systems up on the off of Skyline and Grizzly Peak and stuff. But yeah, there's so many, especially, I mean, I'm, you know, I'm such a new mountain biker, but like a lot of mountain bike culture is like around like, you know, you put your bike on the car, you go to the trailhead, depending where you live, you have to do that. Like there's just no option not to. But I feel like the Bay Area is kind of like uniquely positioned where like if you want to like leave your house on a mountain bike, most likely you can ride to wherever you want to go ride. And luckily I have a pretty lightweight full suspension cross country bike and like can just probably pedal for a few miles up into the Berkeley Hills, Oakland Hills, and hit whatever trail system I want. And yeah, I'm excited to do a bunch of that.
For sure. That's awesome. Well, before we go, I just wanted to ask you my closing question, which is what's one belief that really anchors you in your life and your work and that you think people should hear?
One thing that anchors me. I have to think about it for a sec. I guess, yeah, just kind of like, you know, we're going back to like talking about being like a freelancer and like it only is going to work if you just have like this like steadfast belief that like you are doing all the right things and like everything you're doing and have been doing in the past is all leading to like your future and having success in this. So basically it's kind of just like, and it took me a long time to get to this point and realize that is what it is. But just like being able to have like full belief in what you're doing, like head down, just like this is the path I'm on, and like I'm sticking with it, like regardless of how tough it is, regardless of how futile it's seeming, like whatever's, you know, getting tossed my way, like I'm here and I've had success in this and I'm trying to continue moving forward. And it's just like, just the belief that it's going to work out and there's always going to be on to the next one, on to the next thing. And that pretty much applies to anyone who's working in a freelance capacity. But yeah, just like, you know, it only works if you have the confidence that you're going to continue moving forward with it. You know, I've never once known that, or never once thought that I wanted to like throw in the towel on this career. Like I think about some aspect of photography every single day. Like it's part of my life and I'm always going to like have this like stubborn ability to like continue pushing forward with it regardless of how challenging the industry is seeming, and it's in a pretty challenging place at the moment. But yeah, excited to just, you know, continue pushing forward, and ultimately that's the only way I see it working for anybody.
Yeah, 100%. You got to believe in yourself for sure. It's scary, but
yeah,
you got to do it.
Sure.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much.
We got to do this.
And that's our show for today. If you like this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. It all really helps out. If you have any questions about creativity, process, or anything we talked about, please drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you. You can follow along at Broken Coastal on Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe to my newsletter. It's a weekly dose of inspiration at the intersection of design and outdoors. Thanks for being here.